When your spirit finally lets out the long-suppressed scream it's been attempting to suppress for years. It's a subtle, almost imperceptible moment. Up for oneself. Plus, the vast majority of individuals pay it no mind. Because standing up for oneself is not lauded. They suffocate it with duties, noise, and the desire to be liked. Nobody is praising it. Nobody even wants it. That's the penalty. Your upbringing in this society has taught you that prioritizing your own needs is inherently selfish. Your value is contingent upon the sacrifices you make. I believe that the measure of your goodness is the amount of oneself that you're willing to give away. You gradually fade away year after year. The individuals you spend time with deplete your energy. A voice for those who cannot hear you. Having undying devotion to those who, in your shoes, would be the last to die for you. Where does that leave you? You look in the mirror and see a person you don't know, someone you're bitter with, burn out. But, behind it all, there's this nagging feeling that screams this isn't your true calling. Living on autopilot isn't your calling. You were not intended to accept affectionate breadcrumbs. You were never meant to play a supporting role in your life's narrative. Everything changes the moment you choose to listen to that, when you choose to be yourself completely and without apology. This is not due to any magical change in the environment, but rather to your own actions. You cease seeking solace in the company of others. Your need for rescue must end. You must regain control of your narrative voice. That is, coming back to who you are is the result of going your own way. Unlearning everything is a part of it. You need to let go of the expectations placed on you by society before you can rediscover your authentic self. According to Carl Jung, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. However, what Jung failed to mention is that this journey will require you to let go of everything that isn't actually you. Choosing oneself implies loss, and that is what most people dread. Suffering from a lack of acceptance, solace, and a fabricated sense of belonging. Freedom, though, is yours to keep. The liberation that comes from not sacrificing who you are to maintain harmony. The liberation that ensues when one is no longer. Evaluate your value based on how easily you can be absorbed. The liberation that comes from knowing you aren't responsible for justifying your decisions about personal growth, boundaries, or healing to anyone. No one deserves your presence more than the version of you they could manipulate. You should live the life your soul intended. When you say, I choose you, that's when it all starts. Nor the one under the mask, nor the one in a performance, and definitely not the one that is watered down and deemed socially acceptable. Me. Raw, unwavering, and indisputable. However, going with your gut isn't easy. Whereas broken out. Do battle with your upbringing that inculcated the value of remaining silent. Struggle against the mounting humiliation that comes with declining. Fight the specter of your past, self-imposed limitations. People will stop supporting you. Their expectations will be dashed. People will describe you as uncaring, distant, and difficult. However, you will remain unfazed because you will realize that anyone who leaves you because you have chosen to be yourself was never really yours. And after that din dies down in the aftermath of the fire, a remarkable event transpires. Your own voice starts to resurface. You start to change the way you move, talk, and breathe. You cease to elucidate. Your defense is over. Embrace the power of self-discovery. Your entrance into a room exudes the tranquil assurance of someone who knows they are welcome anywhere they want to be. Choosing isn't something you do. You get to decide. At this point, euphoria sets in. The steady bliss of finally being in sync, as opposed to the ephemeral high of affirmation. The way your body chills out, your thoughts settle. When your internal organs are no longer at battle with one another, you feel a surge of energy. You are all one. Do not be dispersed. You are now an individual, not a collection of other people's demands. You have totality. Power does not emanate from that completeness. Someone who has an innate desire to rule, yet who isn't concerned with pleasing others. You shouldn't seek tranquility. Peace is you. Finding love isn't something you do. Love is you. Your pursuits lack direction. You embody action with purpose. And so it all starts. To reply, chances change. Things change in terms of energy. Personalities change because your frequency changes when you pick yourself, and that frequency acts as a filter. When you start to look about, you'll notice who genuinely values you, listens to you, and volunteers to help out when you need it. You cut ties with someone when they seem too formal, insincere, or transactional. You have made the distinction between loyalty and bondage. Love, you see, isn't love unless it allows you to be free. There is ownership. Plus, no one will ever own you again, now that you can walk. From a distinct, wider vantage point, those who are still caught up in performance find it unsettling because it is so firmly based on self-ownership. When you speak, no one will listen. Your words have an impact. When the time is right, not when you think someone would agree with you, express your mind. You become a threat the second you decided to be yourself. Certainly not to the entire planet, but to each and every building that benefited from your submission. You ceased using someone else's work as a basis for your own. You finally had enough of dynamics that were drowning out your voice. When did you become easy to digest? You began to be genuine at that point. You started to pick up on the subtle manipulations, the guilt trips masquerading as care, the expectations disguised as compliments, and the transactional love that was always conditional on payment. You were confrontational rather than accommodating. You corrected instead of just going along with it. You left without providing an explanation. Alignment appears like this. Sacrifice, rather than perfection or invulnerability, is the key. Willingness to give up on yourself just once more in the hopes of being understood by those who failed to pay attention. Making different decisions allowed you to construct a new reality. You favored depth over popularity, quietness over chaos, and isolation over desperation. Your neurological system and mind were rewired with each decision you made. You had already decided you wouldn't put yourself in situations where you would question your value. Those who could only detect your absence, not your presence, stopped responding to you. And then came the loneliness. You were unbreakable, nevertheless. Thanks to it, you came into this world. Because there's something esoteric about spending time alone. Wakes up. My voice is still fresh in your mind. You are familiar with your tempo. You recall a time when you were free and independent, before you were socialized to submit to others. As a result of this recalling, your outlook changes. Asking, is this space too small, instead of am I too much, is how you avoid reducing yourself to appease weak egos. You quit taking in predictions. Unspoken expectations no longer hold you back. Raise your standards not because you believe in your own superiority, but because you have clear vision. What you put out there. You regain the time you would have spent trying to please other people, mending fences, or justifying your own limits. Instead, you channel it inward, into your vision, your discipline, and your becoming. At this point, your thoughts are working for you. Rather than a battleground for uncertainty, it is a haven for confidence. Your belief in every thought has diminished. Someone questions them. If anything in your internal monologue doesn't ring true, you can safely delete it. Simply said, the mind is a tool for the world when it is untrained. Yet once you've conquered it, it becomes your liberation, your pursuit of absolute sureness. Clarity is your gift. You have overcome your need for approval. There is worth in you. With each no, you uncover a greater yes, and you no longer dread rejection. When you have a firm, unwavering faith in your own value, you no longer approach life entitled, but with purpose. There is no mystery about you. What you contribute is nothing new. There is nothing you will not consent to. Also, you are exempt from providing proof now that it is out of the way. Reactions have no power over you anymore. Your motivation is strong. Through eyesight, and that picture starts to take shape, not as a pipe dream, but as a beacon of hope that you have come to rely on. You cease to wait for indications with every single cell in your body. You quit asking for approval. You take initiative. You take the lead. Take charge. A lack of alignment, not ego, is the reason. Do it not because it is urgent, but because it is your spiritual duty. You can't continue living any other way. It's not easy, but it's your only option. You're not meant to blend in. It is your mission to construct the unseen. Plus, at this point in time, you are now free to do it since you have selected yourself. Everything starts to revolve around your truth once you leave this inner sanctuary of clarity and conviction. Your energy will no longer bargain with disorder, so it will definitely happen, not instantly and not without resistance. You have had enough of places that water down your essence for the sake of appearances. You can relax about forcing connections that necessitate shrinking. In hindsight, you see that the most treacherous act was never. They departing. In order to keep them around, you had to give up on yourself. The treachery, though, has ended. Its name has been uttered by you. Wept over the masks, you have. You have buried your most vulnerable self. Something unstoppable has emerged from the ashes. This shift, this unabashed return to your own perspective, is what makes you ungovernable because it replaces asking, "What do they think of me?" with asking, "What do I think of this? How does this make me feel? Does this reflect who I've become? Who I've been trying to outgrow?" Quit dancing to win people over. You build. Feel free to make your own judgment and use your own judgment. A filter is created by your clarity. The process will not be completed by everybody. That is not just acceptable, but essential. Nobody ever intended for you to be the bearer of other people's comfort. Your purpose in life is to serve as an example of self-honoring behavior for others to follow. Having others either rise with you or fall away as a result of how fully you walk in your light. You're now starting to grasp the essence of purpose. You can't seek out purpose. There's this. I'm sure you'll recall. It is not in the open. You possess it. It's the plan that's been buried under all the guilt, terror, and survival indoctrination. And when you make the decision to be yourself, you create the room to listen. The still, small voice that never left your side said, "This is not your route. This is not your speed. You are not created to remain silent." And when you listen, truly listen, purpose takes shape. It might not be flashy or commercially viable, but it will be genuine. And because it is genuine, it will move mountains. You will start. Build not for validation, but for vision. Act not from pressure, but from power. Honor discipline. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you won't give up the version of yourself that's waiting for consistency. Wake up early, not as a punishment, but as a reverence. Eliminate distractions, not out of fear, but because they divert your focus. Embrace discomfort, not because it's painful, but because it's worth it to become more than what you were before. Breaking free. You become a threat to what once held you back. Not because you're fighting it, but because you've grown beyond it. Your actions now speak volumes. You can stand on your own 2 feet. No more defending your decisions, explaining your assent, or justifying your joy. You're no longer pleading for life to be easier. Instead, you're becoming the type of person who can hold more truth, vision, and responsibility. And as you rise, you start to taste something you've only experienced in the past. Glimpses, a state of being, a home. And when you live from this state, when you're anchored in self and not swayed by the winds of projection or praise, you begin to see clearly. Most people are addicted to numbness and avoidance. But real peace comes from finally ending your war with yourself. You are no longer hiding, competing for your worth, or trying to manage other people's emotions while your own rot in silence. You made a choice that changes everything. Now, instead of acting out of lack, your actions are driven by alignment. Your boundaries are set by overflow, not fear. Your solitude is sacred, not a punishment, but a gateway. You no longer fear being alone. You're addicted to being seen, not known, followed, not felt, liked, not loved. But now you've chosen something rarer, wilder, deeper. You've chosen integrity over image, truth over trend, evolution over acceptance. You have encountered the one constant in your life, your own soul. And after you've had a connection with your soul and experienced the stillness and knowing that comes from sitting in the quiet fire of your own knowing, you will never again tolerate shallow conversations, diluted love, or half-lived truths. Instead, you will develop a taste for what is truly real, intense, still, substantial, and free. This freedom is evident in your choices, in your refusal to engage in dynamics that belittle your spirit, in your being open to being misunderstood by others in order to be understood by yourself is a powerful statement. It means you've stopped flinching, folding, and entertaining people who treat your energy like it's expendable. And that's a sign that you're finally aligned with a purpose greater than survival. You're aligned with destiny, not the fantasy kind that demands all of you and cuts you down to size. Destiny says you're not here to fit in, but rather to remember and reclaim your true identity. You're here to rebuild. And now that you have chosen yourself, you're no longer scared of the cost. You have seen what it costs to not choose yourself. It costs your peace, your clarity, your voice, and a life you could have lived. But no longer. No. Every morning you wake up is an act of rebellion. Every boundary you enforce is an affirmation. Every step you take towards your truth is a rejection of the lies you were raised on. You're no longer performing. You're no longer a puppet. Pretense. You're no longer taming the parts of you that were born to cause chaos. You are the tempest, the change, the stillness that triumphs over shouting. You are the one who recalls, the one who reconstructs, the one who made a choice for themselves and never turned back. The world shifted to honor you now that you're no longer a negotiable force. You're no longer someone who gets swept up in emotional dramas. My dear friend, you have evolved into much more than just someone who explains their intuition to make other people feel better. You are now a mirror reflecting the possibilities that arise when people refuse to abandon themselves, which is a rare quality in a conformity-driven world. Not everyone can handle this reflection, but you are a powerful symbol of a sovereign soul who walks with grace and fire, boundaries and compassion, and power. Your healing reflects their stagnation, clarity their confusion, and freedom their cages. But you do not dim, descend, or dilute your becoming to appease those still undecided about their own. You keep walking because choosing yourself was never just about you. It was about what you activate in the world. And that reflection either inspires or exposes. Some will rise, some will recoil, and some will resent you, not because you hurt them, but because you healed yourself. Being fully empowered means walking like a revolution, not shouting but undeniable. Speaking precisely and moving with purpose, you no longer hold space for validation but truth. And the truth is this: you will never again compromise your peace for proximity, confuse access with intimacy, or betray yourself to belong. You now know that energy is currency, and that love is proven not by endurance, but by alignment. And the more you align, the more powerful you will be. Living from this place attracts the rarest kind of connection, mutual elevation. When you do, you attract people who meet you at your frequency, who don't need you to shrink to feel safe, who don't ask you to explain your light because they haven't found theirs yet. When you choose yourself, you stop surviving and start loving without ownership. People who honor your boundaries as deeply as they honor your brilliance. You begin to choose. You cease to settle. You begin to shape. You cease to bend over backwards for those who would never bend for you. And you begin to become someone who will never again have to beg for what they were born to be.